Please join me in welcoming Mikerowe. Looks like they know you, right?
I assume nothing.
So tell us, Mike, how many dirty jobs did you have so far?
How deep is the ocean? Dirty Jobs has been on the air now for 8 years, and I think as far as episodes go, we've maybe done 180, but there have been 300 different Dirty Jobs. We've shot in every state, in just about every industry that I know of, and the truth is, Dirty Jobs was really an accident.
Really?
I mean, as far as TV shows go, you know, I didn't pitch an idea for a series or for a franchise. The program was a tribute to my granddad, who had many different jobs. He was a tradesman. And back in 2003, you know, the TV landscape was really different than it is today. There were no shows about people catching crabs and people, you know, driving trucks on ice roads and, you know, lumberjacks and all these different things. There were no shows about work. And so we thought it would be a good idea to profile regular Americans who do the kinds of jobs that make civilized life hum. And we just wanted to do 3 hours, three 1-hour shows. And after the first one aired, I got about 10,000 letters from people who saw the show and were reminded of their grandfather or their dad or their brother, mom, cousin, uncle, whatever. And so people started sending in ideas, hey, you should go to Alaska and work on a crab boat, or you should go to, you know, Florida and collect golf balls from water hazards and alligator-infested golf courses. What are you talking about? That's a job? Yeah, that's a job. And so that's what happened. You know, I started opening my mail every day, and it kind of felt like, you know, like in Mission Impossible, only I'm not Tom Cruise. It's like, you know, you'll go to Oklahoma and you will work in a skull rendering plant. Okay, I'll do that. And so that's what it's been for the last 8 years, 300 different dirty jobs, all 50 states, and the real truth is I don't know how to stop it.
Don't stop it.
All right, I'll keep it.
Good. It looks like recently you moved a little bit away from hosting the show to something different in your life, trying to connect people. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It's easy to take credit for things that you're in the middle of that you're really not responsible for, and I hope I'm not doing that, but yeah, the show evolved. And I think maybe I changed a little bit with it. First of all, I'm not really the host on the show. I'm more of a guest, you know. And so when I show up, it's not with a whole lot of what you call institutional knowledge, right? I don't do any preparation. We don't rehearse. We don't scout. There's no pre-production. There's no writing. There's no actors, of course, and there's no second take. So for me, I don't need to be proficient, I just need to be willing to try. So I'm not a host, I'm a guest. But after 3 or 4 years of the show, I began to realize that the show had changed in a way. It was like the headlines in the country were catching up to the themes of the show, if that makes sense. You know, Dirty Jobs is a very simple show. In the history of TV, except for the Gong Show, I seriously don't think there's ever been a simpler program. But the themes in Dirty Jobs, you know, the definition of a good job, the nobility of work, the importance of delayed gratification, the hidden ways that we're all connected, those things became central to headlines. And so suddenly the country's talking about high unemployment, talking about a skills gap. We're talking about all kinds of, you know, work-related challenges. And through luck, I just happened to be out there associated with a show about lots and lots of different kinds of work. And so I began getting phone calls from, like, the financial editor at the Wall Street Journal, asking me if I would care to reconcile two dichotomous data points vis-a-vis rising unemployment and a widening skills gap. And I'm like, you know who this is? What? But nobody was really talking about the fact that every year we were getting fewer and fewer carpenters, steam fitters, pipe fitters, electricians and welders. At the same time, we've got this big unemployment. And I just thought that was a really, really interesting statistic that kind of framed what was going on in the country. The celebration of some jobs at the expense of others. And so I thought, well, the industries that have been very good for my show all face a lot of different challenges. And I'd become friendly with a couple of CEOs from some big companies who were really wrestling every day with this whole skills gap challenge. And so we thought maybe we could build a trade resource center online, called it Mikerowe Works. The fans of Dirty Jobs put it together. It was really just thousands of links, state by state, to apprenticeship programs, fellowship programs, on-the-job training opportunities. And we took the idea, somewhat controversial at the time, but we took the idea that maybe not all knowledge comes from college. And while a four-year degree is certainly something that would be great for everybody to have, it's not realistic. And all these other ways to get smart and all these other skills that were for sale were really going neglected. So I helped build this place where people could come and look through a different lens at different opportunities. That got the attention of a lot of big companies. It also got the attention of Congress. So now, aside from getting phone calls from reporters of the Wall Street Journal, I'm getting calls from senators to come and talk about the changing face of the modern-day proletariat vis-a-vis the digital divide, whatever the hell that means. I don't even know but I'm out there around this notion, around this message. And as you said, it really is a message of connectivity. Yeah. It's the place between blue and white collar. That's really where Dirty Jobs is.
Yeah, it's a good example of connecting people and building a community.
Absolutely.
You have also developed some very interesting views about innovation and imitation. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the fun things that happened because of the show and because of the amount of time it's been on is that I've met over 300 people in all these different industries. And it wasn't obvious at first, but now when you look at that group as a kind of control group, you can almost see a Dirty Jobs philosophy as it applies to a great many things that a lot of big companies often talk about and many times incorporate into their own branding propositions. Teamwork, for instance. There's a Dirty Jobs take on teamwork. There's a Dirty Jobs take on efficiency versus effectiveness. There's a Dirty Jobs philosophy on following your passion, all these different things. But innovation and imitation was something we did a special on because on the show, we meet a lot of people who solved a problem without necessarily reading the directions. You guys know these people? They don't necessarily go to the book to follow the protocol. A pig farmer in Las Vegas who creates in his backyard a giant mechanism that allows him to boil all of the uneaten food scraps in Vegas casinos, which he collects every morning, into this sort of bouillabaisse that he feeds his pigs. It's a conveyor system. It's got its own heating unit. It's got all kinds of stuff attached to it. He put this thing together like MacGyver, from parts from a junkyard. We see those people all of the time on the show. But to your point, we also see a talent that a lot of big companies neglect in their eagerness to promote innovation, and that is imitation. Most dirty jobbers understand the importance of imitating. And by imitating, I don't mean derivative thought. I mean the ability to do the same thing over and over again in the exact same way with excellence. I was just talking to one of your guests backstage well, look at it this way. All of the innovation in the world, whether it goes into a smartphone or whether it goes into a computer, if you don't have the ability to replicate that, all you've really done is make a really cool prototype. And, there are lots of people out there with big ideas who are laboring in their attic or their basement, and they've come up with something that's kind of cool, but they have no facility for how to do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And so on dirty jobs, we meet a lot of those people. Some of them are on factory floors. Some of them are closet inventors. It could be an oyster shucker. I mean, this whole notion of, comparing and contrasting innovation and imitation happened up in Washington with a little woman named Suki who can open an oyster and remove its contents with the speed of light, essentially. I mean, she's so good at what she does, and she does it over and over again. And normally we would associate that talent with a measure of drudgery. But on the show, we try and find people, and they're not hard to find, who do this kind of work really, really well, over and over again, with joy. And if you're going to pay an honest tribute to work, in my opinion, you have to somehow capture the fun of the challenge, and the joy and the adversity, and the pleasure and the pain. That's all kind of smashed all together.
Yeah. As you know, here in the room, we have 5,000 Solidworks users. They are innovators, they are inventors, they are creating product. Based on your experience, what would you share with the audience?
Well, I mean, it sounds like, first of all, I should say, when I was invited here, I looked very quickly at the email and I thought it was a solid waste convention. I was like, hey, 8 years ago I spoke at a solid waste convention in Indiana. I had a ball. I talked for 2 hours and then we all went to a bar across the street. This isn't that. I would say, honestly, that you guys live and work in an interesting space. And as I see it, it's the space between blue and white collar. And one of the great fictions that's been at work in our country for decades is this blue-white collar notion. We just love the either or. What do you do? Are you in this camp or that camp? The real action today with respect to work, from what I've seen, is what you guys do. It's neither blue nor white, but it's a willingness to get dirty. It's we used to call them muddy boot architects where I grew up. Builders whose boots were muddy because they were actually in the dirt, using their brain and using their hands contemporaneously. The idea that the world is still bifurcated into one camp or the other, it's not true. And more to the point, I think it's dangerous. I think it's counterintuitive to look at work that way. So when I find groups of people, whether it's in solid waste or Solidworks, that are actually, that have some mud on their boots, that have some grime in their fingernails, but still fundamentally are curious, and motivated to, as you said, make that sticky tissue, that connected stuff better. That's pretty cool, because that's imitation and innovation combined. And if you can figure out how to be clean and dirty at the same time, you're going to be just fine.